Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Let's see, let's just get our settings up here. All right. Yeah, we'll just let people jump in for a minute or two here. Looks like people are still signing on, so that's good. All right, and you can just take a minute to just say hello and maybe share a fun fact about yourself, like just kind of get to know each other a little bit here, and then share one way burnout is affecting your team. So, obviously you're joining us just to kind of learn some solutions and just share what's going on with you and your team and kind of know that we're all in this together. So you can take a moment and maybe share something there. And the way that you can do that is down on the right-hand side under questions. And I also have Isaiah on, who is my co-founder and partner, and he's going to be answering questions. So we'll give everybody another minute and then I'll kind of introduce him. And yeah, you can start to just say hello and thank you for joining us. Awesome. All right, it's like still coming on. We'll give it to about 11:02 or so. Hopefully everybody's back and feeling refreshed after Memorial Day weekend. Nice long weekend. Kick off the summer, so that feels good. Hopefully everybody had good weather wherever they're coming from. Yeah, and if you're international, probably didn't celebrate Memorial Day, but we had a long weekend here, so that was nice. Okay. All right, let's get started. So like I said, we have Isaiah on. He's gonna hop on and show his camera. If you can't see him already, I can't see everybody fully, but he's just gonna introduce himself. He is, again, my partner and co-founder here at Self by Design. He is an NLP coach like myself. He's also coached individuals, and he is a mindfulness consultant for corporations. So he's your guy to just come on, talk to you about mindfulness and how that can support your organization and getting your team trained in mindfulness, compassion, and emotional mastery to bring them to the next level in leadership. So just gonna say hello.
Hello. Yeah, how's it going, everyone? Yeah, so Nicole has put a lot of work into these presentations and is really focused on just kind of changing workplace culture from this perspective of mindfulness and leading in such a way that we can actually impact change across people's lives much further and much farther reaching than kind of traditional modalities or employee benefits. And so what we've kind of really focused on here in the Leading Mindfully series, and this is presented by Self by Design in partnership with NextGen EAP, and we're focused really on just kind of getting to the root of the problem. And she has done an immense amount of work to kind of research and stay on top of these trends. Her father has been working in this industry for a long time. She's been an executive, and I'll let her introduce herself and all the things she's good at. But at the end of the day, I just hope that all of you take away from this just something that is actionable, something that you didn't know. And if you guys want to have a conversation with it, my email is always open and my calendar link will be sent to you guys after, and you can just book an appointment for me. I'm leaving that open. I won't be selling you anything on that call. I mean, there's truly a free 30-minute mindfulness consultation. And so if that's something you want to explore at the end of this, please, don't hesitate to reach out, and the rest of it I'll let Nicole handle as this is her presentation. So thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, thanks, Isaiah. Awesome. All right, and so we just had a few people say hello. So it looks like Tiffany has completed 2 marathons and 15 half marathons. That is a lot of marathons. Awesome, Tiffany. And burnout is affecting your team's morale. Yeah, for sure. Definitely a big impact on morale and motivation. Bobby Smathers, I hope you can hear, Bobby. I think everybody else can hear. Let me know in the chat if you can't. Maybe something with your sound that you want to tell us. Oh, we can now. Okay, perfect. And then Debbie's just saying hello. Awesome. All right. Let me get my camera out of the way. Okay, so let's just get started. Looks like everybody's on. So again, thank you for joining us. This is the HR Leading Mindfully webinar series. So it's really just dedicated to informing HR and leadership and organizations about what's going on in the industry and helping to problem solve and provide solutions, right? And so we're kind of, like I said before, we're all in this together, sharing and learning from each other. And we've really designed this series to just kind of take everything that I've been hearing, you know, among HR and leadership, and then also on the other side, working with employees and kind of the teams underneath them, and combining it into a webinar series to really share what we've found and what's helping. Okay, and then Tracy just said having recruiting difficulties, staffing shortages that are creating busier days and higher stress and burnout. Yeah, for sure, Tracy, you are not alone. That is the summation of a lot of our conversations. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So today we are talking about how to prevent and reduce employee burnout, right? And so again, we're all kind of jumping on, wondering how to troubleshoot this. This is a big thing. I would say in 90% of my conversations that I have with leaders and organizations, this is one of the first things that they come to, that people are burnout, they're stressed, they're overworked, they're overwhelmed. And so really just kind of providing solutions for that and talking about, you know, this kind of, you know, it's been in our culture for a long time, but this kind of new awareness that we have around burnout and how to solve it. So who am I? I am the founder of Self by Design, and I'm a mindfulness trainer. So I train organizations daily on mindfulness and emotional mastery, and just really the skills to just be better leaders and bring the humanity back into organizations. I was originally a mindset coach, so I worked with executives, managers, and entrepreneurs to really help them shift their mindset and really learn to problem solve and strategize that way versus just a, you know, totally business-minded strategy. We're really bringing in the mindset and identity and beliefs and values and allowing them to shape and shift from there, which led me to mindfulness training. I'm also an NLP practitioner. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's just a big part of my philosophy and the work that I do today. I have a heavy focus on the subconscious mind. So a lot of mindfulness training is really focused on the conscious mind, right? Being aware and being able to stay awake and alerted to what's going on in our everyday lives. But I really believe there's a lot happening in the subconscious mind. So that's our identity, that's the beliefs we hold, that's the habits and the patterns that we're running and our emotions and our relationship to them. So I bring a lot of that into my training and my coaching. And I believe that's the big differentiator between you know, normal, let's say original kind of mindfulness program and a lot of the training that I've done and kind of taking it to that next level. And so I brought all that into the Self by Design Mindfulness Leadership Institute, which is a live mindfulness leadership training, building more mindful, resilient, and compassionate leaders. So we really believe in that live training component and really guiding people together. So what makes my philosophy different? This is kind of a lot of what we just went over, but really bringing in the subconscious mind, the power and energy of live training. So we really don't like the idea of just providing a course that's, you know, purchased by the organization but free to the employees and letting them self-guide themselves through it, because it really doesn't happen. They don't have the accountability, they don't have the motivation, just like we're talking about. They're burnout, they're stressed. And so really bringing that group collaboration together, bringing that energy of the live guided trainings and having the support system built in. And I focus on experience, application, and continual practice over knowledge. So some of you might have attended my mindfulness master classes. These are my open webinars to the public and other companies that we work with. And really, we focus a lot on exercises over just learning about mindfulness, just learning about, you know, your emotions and resilience and things like that. We're really applying it. Okay, so my expertise, I studied cognitive science at Stanford, really got into neuroscience in the brain and how that affects our psychology and how we can bring that into mindfulness. I became a neuro-linguistic programmer, which is just a form of therapy that really supports understanding the mind and understanding how we create these models and patterns of the world and being able to disassemble those and reassemble them to create new ones. I studied neuroplasticity, so that's really just being able to change your neurology and understand, again, how the brain works so you can make change in your outer life. I also studied cognitive behavioral therapy at Stanford, mindfulness-based stress reduction, cognitive hypnotherapy, which has been interesting and a part of my coaching more so than my training. And then I really focus on values and purpose, and we're going to get into that and how that relates to burnout a little bit later. But of course, I became an IFC certified coach and brought in a lot of that vision and values coaching to my private clients, learning about identity and self-expression. And I really believe now we're bringing that to organizations and really allowing the organization as a whole and the leadership as a whole to identify that align vision and values, and then kind of explore the identity and the expression of the organization. And so, like Isaiah mentioned, I've been working in the HR industry for over 10 years now. I was executive level at an EAP provider for many years, and I have daily conversations now with HR professionals and leaders. And like I said, I get to see both sides of the conversation, which is really a unique place to be. I kind of wish I had been there when I was in the EAP field particularly. But now, like I said, I really get to see what the employees are saying, what they're feeling, what they're thinking in those training sessions, and then what leadership and kind of the really top C-suite is thinking and feeling, and being able to draw some connections and make some bridges. Okay, so our agenda for today, how to prevent and reduce employee burnout. And let me just take a quick look, see if there's any questions or anything. Okay, everything's good over there. So today we're going to talk about the role that organizations play. We are going to define burnout, and then we're going to talk about what we're doing wrong, right? So this is kind of we're all trying to solve this problem in our own way. But there's some things that we're doing that really are more of a band-aid and a quick fix, and we're not really getting to the root of things. Then we're going to talk about 3 ways to reduce burnout, my top 3 ways, and then the new role of leadership today. All right, so the role that organizations play in this whole scheme. So right now, as many of you know, and of course are experiencing, it's really a time to lead, right? So, post-pandemic, we've been affected by a lot of it. Burnout is a big problem. Lots of people are feeling stressed. They're feeling overworked. People are leaving the organization, so they're getting more work piled on top of them. The organization is trying to recover. And really what I've found, and I want leaders to understand, and it's helped me to really understand, that burnout is more about your organization, so your environment and the culture that you've created, than your people. And we're going to talk about some solutions for that later, but really just kind of bringing that home. And it's really the culture that you're created and the way that you're moving together over the individuals. And leadership has a huge role in preventing and protecting people from burnout. So it's really the onus on us, and also, the responsibility, but also the power to really make these shifts and changes. And we want to understand that individuals really can't solve their own kind of burnout or stress problems with just enough days off and self-care practices, right? These are often what we go to kind of as just a quick fix, and totally makes sense, right? We're like, we just want to offer some sort of solution, some sort of support. So take a vacation, or, do some more yoga, or whatever that is, right? But we want more long-term sustainable solutions in place as well. And really, I feel the call for us as leaders to really just reimagine, redefine, and redesign the workplace, right? It's like this door has been opened after the pandemic, and it's like, hey, business as usual is not business as usual anymore. There's a lot of opportunity here for us to rethink and reimagine what that could really look like for organizations, and step through that door and really make a difference and change the way people are working and living. And so I'm really just kind of making this call to recognize the patterns of burnout. That's why most of you are here, right? And own it and say, hey, like, I always, give credit to the conversations that I'm having every day to leaders that are coming to me being like, this is a problem, and this is hard, and this sucks, and it's challenging. And it's like, great, you've owned it. Like, we're coming forth and saying that this is a challenge we're experiencing, and now it's time to lead, and really lead with that modeling behavior of showing others as a leader how you're taking care of yourself, leading with empathy, compassion, and purpose. And so the team will follow, and will have that ripple effect outward. Okay, so just a few statistics here on the impact that burnout is having right now. And burnout is a very, very real thing. Lots are experiencing this. And I also just think these statistics kind of help us kind of acknowledge, like, we're not alone, right? And every organization that comes to me is like, our problems are so unique and they're so different, but in the same way, they're all very similar, right? And so 75% of employees are reporting being burnt out at work and feeling that their employers aren't doing enough to address workplace burnout. And as an employer, I know you're doing a lot, right? It might just be misalignment there on what the employee wants and what the employer thinks that they want. So just kind of getting that alignment shored up, and we'll talk about that too. 36% of respondents say their company does not offer any programs or initiatives to prevent or alleviate burnout, right? And so again, there's a bit of a disconnect. The employees are kind of like, hey, we're not being taken care of. Obviously, the leaders are really trying to take care of themselves and do everything they can, but there's a disconnect and a miscommunication there. And then 41% of respondents are planning on leaving the job in the next 3 months. And again, this was from a Harvard Review study in 2020. So I like to say that that has already happened, right? So a lot of them have left. Obviously, we're experiencing that. That's why burnout has really accelerated in even the last 6 months, because we've had a lot of job loss, and we've had a lot of people moving and transitioning to other positions. So 30 to 50% of organizations have already experienced this turnover. Right, I talked to an HR professional in the last few weeks who had to hire for 100 new positions, and I was like, how do you even hire for 100 positions? It doesn't even seem possible. But that's a big gap, and it's really affecting a lot of us. All right, and then of course the fiscal consequences are just as real. So we are spending $1.8 trillion per year due to that loss of productivity from burnout, from these employees just feeling stressed and under-supported and undervalued, and resulting in absenteeism and just loss of production there. And then $190 billion are spent in healthcare costs every year due to the effects of burnout, whether that's stress, depression, anxiety, anything that's really affecting the mental, emotional, and physical body. All right, and then lastly, see if we can get this thing to go. Burnout and retention. So 95% of HR leaders say burnout is seriously hurting retention. So that's always kind of the parallel that's drawn in my conversations, where it's like, hey, burnout is a problem, but you know what? Retention is just a bigger problem. And obviously it's a cyclical relationship. So research also shows that the dollar amount is really high when it comes to recruit, onboard, and train. So we really want to keep our employees. Of course, you guys all know this, but it can cost as much as $1,500 for hourly employees, but then that exponentially increases when we move to salaried employees. It can be 100 to 150% of an employee's salary to hire for a technical position. We all know that those salaries are very high, and then up to 213% of an employee salary for C-suite positions. And we know, that requires, headhunters and recruiters and all sorts of other training and even team camaraderie and getting them back into the position and just going from there. So it's a big shift, and it's definitely something we're all experiencing, and it's definitely impacting us at high levels. Okay, so let's just get into what burnout really is and what it means. And of course, we all kind of use this umbrella term, but I just wanted to lay out a direct definition so we can really understand it and really wrap our minds around it. So burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion brought on by prolonged or repeated stress. So it can affect all areas of life, including work and home environment, right? So again, it's kind of this holistic thing. It's affecting your emotional body, your mental, and your physical. And a lot of times when we say somebody's burnout, we just think they're physically exhausted, but really they're just mentally exhausted. They don't have any more to give. They've kind of reached their maximum, right? Or they're emotionally exhausted, and so they're offloading because they're at the top of their capacity onto other coworkers, onto you as the leader, onto their families, right? Because their container is kind of full and it's spilling over the top. And that is just really what I see and feel burnout is among our organizations and among our culture. And so I've really identified 3 key dimensions of burnout, and we're going to talk about detecting those early warning signs. But really, for an individual and even an organization as a whole to have burnout, we usually have these 3 key factors. So overwhelming exhaustion, mental, physical, and emotional again, feelings of cynicism and detachment from the job and even from the company, and I would even say leadership, right? So there's just a misalignment there, and there's a disconnect. And then lack of accomplishment, which is a sense of ineffectiveness, right? And so kind of that identity loss, like who am I? Is what I'm doing really supporting the organization? Is this really where I want to be investing my time and energy? And so having those 3 factors really kind of creates the perfect storm for burnout, right? And kind of that triad of those different pieces. So what are the early warning signs of burnout? Mostly we start with kind of that detached, apathetic approach to the workplace culture, right? It's kind of the employees that really just don't want to be involved. They don't want to assert themselves, and they're starting to create some distance and some space between themselves and the organization. So that's kind of the first step. Then, that usually leads to loss of motivation and enthusiasm for their job, decreased productivity, increased mistakes and poor memory. So maybe you have an employee that all of a sudden is just really not getting the work done. They're forgetting things that they need to do. They're making mistakes that they didn't make before. They're having an inability to make decisions, poor sleep habits, irritable and more sensitive to feedback, and increased negativity and cynical outlook. And of course, that leads to increased absenteeism, even presenteeism, right? When people are there and they're not really there. So really, all of these early warning signs are about the same as early warning signs for anybody that's just experiencing a lot of psychological and emotional distress. And the difference between burnout and just that stress that they're experiencing is it's prolonged. It's over a period of time where we're not able to manage it quickly and provide solutions and make that shift. It's just kind of sustained and it's chronic. And so we really want to be proactive and learn how to identify these early warning signs and kind of shape and shift early so that we can move preventively and proactively again to change this. All right. So what are we doing wrong? Let me just make a quick, okay, no questions or anything. So there's a disconnect here, like I've said, between what employees really want and what we think employees want as employers. And so what I've seen and heard and even, felt in my sessions and in my trainings is employees really, really just want recognition and value for who they are as a whole person and what they do. So they really just want to be seen and heard. And of course, that's going to come from leadership, right? It's going to come from the people around them and just having that point person and somebody to be like, yes, I see you, I understand you, I feel you, and I really appreciate you for who you are and how you're showing up in this organization and what you're doing for us as a whole. So they're looking for that true guidance and mindful leadership. And of course, our leaders are stressed out, right? And our leaders are overwhelmed. So it's hard to provide that right now, but this is what the employee is looking for. And so it's kind of up to us to take that first step and then lead the employee there. And then real mental and emotional health support, right? So not just kind of the Band-Aid approach. I had heard the joke before, just kind of providing like free meditations, just saying, here, like do this free meditation or download this app and you'll be fine, right? Real support, real guidance, real accountability, and a real community around that. And then employers are also looking for work-life integration. So work-life balance is old, it's out, right? That was more 90s, early 2000s. When I was working in EAP, everything was about work-life balance, but now it's about work-life integration. So we've really blurred the lines and employees are looking for support in navigating that new way of living, right? Like flexible work options, different work hours, whatever that is to just support their new lifestyle. And then employees are really looking for job alignment. And so that's why so many employees have left, because they feel misaligned with the mission and values of the company. And so really having that alignment and understanding what their own personal missions and values are, and then the company's mission and values, and really creating that fit. All right, so what employers think employees want is more vacation time and days off, right? Usually it's like, oh, you're stressed out, you're overwhelmed. I can tell you're at the brink of burnout. I'm getting the signs now when they've been happening for a few months, but it's pretty severe. So just go take some time off and like cool off, and we'll reset when you come back. But again, it's kind of just, it's a solution in a way, but it's just not a solution at the root. Maybe a new job title. Maybe we're saying, hey, a lot of people have left. Why don't we just give you a new job title and kind of, update you there and upgrade you there? But it's really not satisfying what they actually feel that they deserve and are needing in this situation. Or more money. I know budgets are tight right now with some people experiencing this, but maybe you've lost a lot of employees, so just kind of throwing more money at an employee and saying, here, like this should change it, right? But that doesn't change their workload. It doesn't change their values and mission alignment and all those other pieces that really make an employee feel supported. So some of us can be a little bit tone deaf and non-empathetic, right? We just can't really hear what the employee needs, and we don't really have the tools to respond. And a lot of that comes because we're not at the root of the problem, right? If we understood the problem, we would know how to fix it. And that's really how everything works in life. When you truly, truly understand the problem, the solution arrives. And so let's get into the root causes of burnout. Where is this really emanating from? And so this is from another Harvard Business Review study, and they surveyed over 1,000, U.S. companies and asked their employees what really causes burnout. Like, what are you really experiencing right now? And the things that were noted were unsustainable workloads, lack of agency, so really not having that kind of authority and autonomy in their schedules, in their hours, even in the projects that they work on. Lack of rewards and recognition is a big one. And I would say in my conversations, and again, in the research that I've done, that's probably number one, that they're just not feeling appreciated. Lack of community. So really with this remote work environment, we're feeling disconnected. We're not even sometimes meeting our managers or meeting our coworkers. And so we're feeling a little bit distant and disconnected from that sense of community and that teamwork environment. Lack of fairness, right? We've seen a lot of that lately among women and minorities and in organizations. And so this has been another big piece. And then mismatched values and skills. So really, again, not aligning a employee, even if it's just repositioning them in the company, with their values and the skills that they possess to really move the company forward and make them feel supported. And then just lack of priorities and direction by leadership. So often our leadership team just, again, doesn't have the space or the awareness or whatever that is to set their own priorities and really be mindful about the way that they're moving forward and support the employees by saying, hey, this is what's important, this is what's not. Let's forget about that and take this off your plate, and we're going to move forward with this aligned direction and this focus. So to just really summarize all of that, for me, if I was to zoom out and take this kind of higher observant position, it's really about leadership again, right? Like all of these, if we hop back here, root causes of burnout, we could just summarize this into we're looking for leaders that can lead mindfully, compassionately, and emotionally masterfully, right? Really understand their emotions so they can understand others and bring organizations and their teams to that next level and really lead by example. And to me, that would really address all of these root causes, right? And because leaders all of a sudden like, hey, I understand myself, I understand my own emotions, I understand my own mission and values, and then let me lead by example and let employees try that on, and also let that carry out into the organization as a whole, and even our communities and the world at large. Okay, so let's provide some solutions here. So top 3 ways to reduce burnout. Let me just check how we're doing in time. Okay, good, we're moving along. I'm talking quick as usual in my typical New York style. All right, so 3 ways to reduce burnout. Number 1 is foster a mental health friendly culture. This has been big. I know this has been in a lot of the SHRM articles and kind of headlines and things lately, right? It's just really moving towards a culture that removes the stigma of mental health and makes leaders the champions of mental health and well-being. So really leading by example. And that could mean, right, on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you work through lunch and you're stressed out and you don't take your vacation days, well, then guess what your employees and your teams think that they need to be doing. And that's going to create that kind of culture of burnout. So we really want to kind of switch that lens and say, like, how are we leading? What are we doing first? And ways that we can lead mindfully, and some tips here, could be literally meditating at your desk in the mornings for 5 minutes, right? And maybe leaving your door open so others see that what you're doing, and maybe get curious and they notice like, hey, so-and-so's a little bit happier today, or not so irritable and kind of has a smile on her face, right? And so maybe there's a shift there. And then consistent check-ins and open conversations with our employees. And I know that depends on the size of your team, and we're going to talk about that in a second. I really think smaller teams are better, and I've seen organizations really thrive with breaking up into smaller teams, but there's ways to do this with large groups as well. But really just checking in and just kind of getting, I would call the rose, thorn, and bud of the week, right? This is something that when I was young, I was working in summer camps with small children, and we would ask them, we would check in like, hey, like, what's the rose, thorn, and bud of your week? And they would say, oh, things are going really well here. Like, I had this cool thing happen at home. And then, oh, this is kind of challenging, or this is painful, right? And then I'm looking forward to this. And so we can translate that to our organizations today and really ask, like, what's going well? Let's celebrate together. And then what's challenging? What can we have a conversation about? Where can we problem solve together? And then the bud would be, what are we looking forward to? So kind of bringing them back to that place of optimism and kind of hope for the future. What can we look forward to, right? And shifting that perspective. And then we can actively audit our own priorities, values, and direction. So again, right, you are only as good as a leader as the work that you've done. So really kind of auditing how you're showing up, how you're prioritizing, and what values and direction you're leading with. And this is a lot of what we do in the training, right? Like really diving into what are your personal values? What is your direction and mission? And kind of getting into your identity and beliefs in those pieces so you can align and lead. Because if we're misaligned as leaders, it's really hard to show someone where you're going if you're not even sure what direction you're leading in. And then, maybe we can host open meditation or yoga sessions for employees during work hours. Again, these are small solutions that just start to make bigger shifts and kind of that compound effect over time. And we can empower employees with flexible work options and schedules. So again, this is all up to your organization, but maybe we want to, allow a few days work from home, or employees to work different hours if they have young children or elderly parents at home, or whatever that is. Just really saying to the employees like, hey, I see you. I get that your lifestyle, is a little bit different, or you have some other things to accommodate for. And so how can we support you in that instead of kind of fighting against it? And then smaller teams. So just showing everyone that they have a voice, right? It's really hard in large teams to have everyone feel like they're making a difference and feel like they're really recognized as an individual for their contributions. And so just kind of breaking those teams up into smaller teams, right? And giving people that opportunity to be a part of something and work towards something together that they can see is really making the changes in real time, and really get to know each other and have those connections. This is just a side story, but I read in some of my research that just having one good friend at work really makes employees feel 30%, I think it was 30 to 40% more, loyal and trusting of the corporation as a whole. Just having that other person there being like, you know what, I have somebody and I feel like seen, heard, and felt. And of course, if that was a leader, it would be even more exponential, but just really allowing them to have that point of connection. And that can happen in smaller teams. And then just creating a physical safe space or time for conversations to happen. So often conversations about vulnerability and those psychological safety kind of situations that our employees are looking for are not happening because the employees feel maybe uncomfortable, like, oh, I don't really want to walk into so-and-so's office and tell them that I'm experiencing this or I'm struggling with this. But maybe we can open up office hours or something, right? And say like every Wednesday, from whatever, 1 p.m. after lunch until 3 p.m., we have this time where you can come in and have a conversation with me, and we'll go out to, the back gazebo or something and have a conversation there, or whatever that is, just a place where somebody feels like they have some space and time for these conversations to happen, and you can problem solve together. And then really, of course, I'm a big proponent of this, but really learning the skills of mindful communication and leadership, right? So again, if we're asking leaders to step up and lead, it's like, okay, cool, but how? Like, what do we do? How do we open up these new communication channels? How do we master our own emotions? And how do we lead with that compassion and that resiliency that we would love to have so that our employees can do the same? All right, number 2, embrace a culture of emotion. And so this is something that I've also seen among a lot of organizations is we focus so much on cognitive culture, I call it. So our kind of intellectual values, right? Like I've definitely even asked this in the beginning, like, what are your values? Like, what are you guys looking to accomplish here? And like, how are you leading? And so we always have these intellectual values that are X, Y, and Z. We have norms in the company, whether they're, conscious or unconscious, and we have these protocols, but we forget about the emotional culture of a corporation, I call it. And so back to my, coaching and training, I talk a lot about the subconscious mind. I really believe that there's like this subconscious kind of emotional body of organizations that we're just not even aware of yet. And creating the space for those emotions to come up is really going to create that vitality among organizations, that well-being, and really increase the health of the culture the same way that it does for humans, right? So often as humans, we're not able to access our emotions, really feel them, and really navigate them. And I feel that organizations are like one big entity in the same. And so having that capacity to really get to the subconscious of the organization and really embrace that culture of emotion, I've seen just lots of growth and just lots of vitality and collaboration and well-being among that corporation as a whole when they're moving that way. And that builds that psychological trust and that safety among everyone, not just, leader to employee, but just the whole company as a whole really says like, hey, we're in this together, and we can be open, we can be real, we can be our whole selves. And this is a place that I want to stay regardless of my title, regardless of how much money I'm making, et cetera, because I really feel recognized and valued here. And I have the kind of safe space to share, who I am and that vulnerability. And then I always say that feeling comfortable with your own emotions, right, as leaders allows you to feel comfortable with others. And so this is something that even brought me to private coaching years ago, is I was really not comfortable with my own emotions. I couldn't really share what was coming up for me. It was just really surface level. And so how could I hold space for others' emotions? And so back then I probably would have not been a great leader, because I'd just be like, well, I don't want to deal with it. I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to leave the room or whatever that is. And we all kind of do that in a way, or have our own coping mechanisms. But really for us, the work is to feel comfortable with our emotions so we can feel comfortable and hold the space for others. And that's when beauty and real things start to happen and real shifts are made. Okay, number 3, last one, is to ensure employees are taken care of. So really what I'm hearing, even in the conversations in my trainings, just asking employees like, what do you really need? Like, what are you really looking for? Because of course, on the other side, it's kind of the employees saying the leaders aren't doing it, and then the leaders are like, the employees aren't doing it. But really employees are just looking to know that you as an organization, as a leader, truly care about them. And one way to do that is to, of course, like provide resources and solutions, but also empower employees to seek the help for their own challenges, right? And give them those resources and those pathways to do so. So this could be an EAP program. Of course, I'm a big proponent of EAP programs, working with them. I know that they really work. I know that they really help. Telebehavioral health benefits. So allowing employees to call in and have video sessions with a therapist that they feel really resonates with them and really can support them, that maybe they couldn't have access to in their hometown or wherever they're located. Personal career coach access. So this is becoming huge in corporations. I'm sure you guys have heard of Better Up and Bravely, right? So platforms like that are saying, hey, sure, you have a network of therapists with your EAP program, but now you have a network of coaches as well if you need some guidance and some access to these different levels of your career and how to move through them. And then mindfulness resources and education. So again, this is my big mission, just really allowing organizations to understand the benefits of mindfulness and then apply them and provide them to their employees. And really just show that you're listening, right? And then you're responding, and you really, really care about what the employee is experiencing and how you can support them. And so again, everyone just wants to be seen, heard, and felt. That's really what it comes down to. That's what it came down to in coaching. That's what it comes down to in training. Just really recognizing the individual and saying like, hey, I hear you. I feel this, I can empathize with this, I've been through this, and how can I support you? What can we do to move through this together? All right, so that being said, the new role of leadership here is really to empower leaders, and this is what I feel really close to my mission, is just empower leaders to empower individuals. So having that trickle down effect, right? And leading with that capacity and with that mindfulness to allow our employees to do the same, because we've created that space for ourselves. We've given ourselves back that power, and now we can give it to others. So really that starts with learning and applying, I always say, right? We don't just want to cognitively understand the foundations of mindfulness and awareness. So back to those early warning signs, right? If we have that mindfulness and that awareness muscle really dialed in, whether that's through meditation or through going on long walks and being aware of your surroundings and kind of training that, then we can recognize those little nuances of like, oh, okay, I actually think that, Joe isn't feeling that great today because he's displaying this, and now I've noticed it over a couple of weeks, and so now I can step in and proactively manage versus letting it go 4 months, 6 months, and then all of a sudden it's a panic attack, or it's something that we have to really troubleshoot with some higher resources and some urgency. And then understanding identity patterns and beliefs. So again, really understanding our own identity, our own patterns, and our own beliefs so that we can understand others. That's always really the way it starts, right? Understand ourselves, and then you're like, hey, I work this way. You know, I'm human, and so are they. And so they have the same patterns and beliefs, or they have that kind of same structure, but they might have different patterns and beliefs. So really just knowing how that translates. And then aligning personal values and mission with the company values and mission. So again, this is something that I do in the training with every organization I work with. We really dive into what are your personal values? Like, what do you really want and desire in life, and what's really important to you, and how is that connected to the company, and how can you translate that to your needs? And so allowing leaders to do that allows them to provide that to their employees. And then really learning to master your emotions and hold space for others. We already talked about that a bit. And then communicating and listening mindfully. So, you know, we've even done some exercises before to really see how people are communicating and listening. And most of us are just listening to respond instead of really listening and getting to an understanding and being able to provide solutions, or even just hold space and then provide solutions later if the employee needs that. And then building the skills to lead mindfully with empathy, curiosity, and compassion. So really just having those kind of new skills in leadership that are really required to thrive and build a successful, you know, healthy, vital company. And for me, and what I've seen is this always has a network effect. So, you know, if you're going to do a training or implement a program, I always suggest just start small, right? Just start with a group and a, you know, leadership team or whatever it is, and let it ripple outward, and let other, either whether it's teams or employees, say, like, what's different? What's going on here? And how can our team be part of that? And so maybe, you know, you start with the marketing department and you make some shifts and changes with them, and we notice that they're thriving and their productivity's up and their morality's up. And then, so then we move it to the sales, you know, we move it to finance, and it ripples out from there and really has this organizational shift over time. So really, we're just bringing the humanity back to organizations. And like I mentioned at the beginning, the time is now. The door is wide open. And I really just want to encourage us as organizations to make this shift and step into this power that you have to lead with this, you know, mindful mentality, to lead with supporting employees with mental health and emotional health, and just show up in that way. And I guarantee your organization is going to make leaps and bounds over those that are kind of going back to the old way, and then really not opening the door, and supporting employees in this way. Okay, so that all being said, everything that we just talked about is in the Mindfulness Leadership Institute, and that is the 6-week mindfulness leadership training that I have personally designed. You know, my co-founder and partner Isaiah has helped a lot with building that, and we brought this coaching expertise together and my experience in the EAP field, and coach and private coaching to build this program to create more mindful, resilient, and compassionate leaders. And so each of these levels of the program is really just each of the levels of leadership that we talked about. So building a foundation of mindfulness, diving into your subconscious identity and beliefs and aligning those with yourself first and foremost, and then the organization, learning about rituals and routines and designing that. So again, you're only as good as how you're leading. So showing up with that 5-minute meditation or a, walk at lunch, whatever that is, to lead your employees towards higher levels of mental and emotional well-being. And then really learning how to regulate your emotions. And then once you have that established, communicating those emotions and holding space for others to conflict, resolve, and move through their own emotions. And then we talk about just really bringing this all together in the pinnacle of becoming that compassionate, curious, and mindful leader. And yeah, and so we have this is kind of just an inside look of the portal. So we offer free meditations within the portal. We're adding them every week. I believe we'll have about 60 meditations pretty soon in there. We have all of those recordings for the trainings that I've done to kind of open up to the public and allow individuals to learn about this and really just give back and let them understand themselves. And then we lead these HR Leading Mindfully webinars as well within this portal. So everything is in there. You can join at mind.selfbydesign.com, and you can also explore the curriculum a little further to the Mindfulness Leadership Institute. Okay, and we're going to open up for questions in just a second. I just want to thank NextGen EAP for really holding the space for this webinar to happen and really showing up with a holistic EAP. They offer mindfulness services, services through South by Design that we provide, where we give quarterly training to their employees and then offer those meditations and videos on mindset training and really just a holistic experience to really show that whoever has this EAP program really cares and supports the employees. Okay, yeah, thank you so much for being here and for staying with me and for really just learning about burnout and how it's affecting our organizations and really knowing that this is the time to step into that truly leadership, mindfully leadership role and serve your employees and your organizations at the highest level. So if anybody has any questions, I know Isaiah is still on to kind of look at the chat. It's hard for me to see it sometimes in these webinars, but feel free to ask any questions or anything in the chat below. Let me see if I can keep bringing it up. Okay. And I'm going to stop sharing so you guys can see me too. Back on the big screen. Okay. All right. Let's see. And show. Okay. So let's see. Bobby asked, does South by Design offer webinars to teach managers the foundations of mindfulness awareness? Yes, we do. So we'll be running these pretty frequently, Bobby. And then if you are a client of the Mindfulness Leadership Institute, we also offer the mindfulness leadership training to them as well. So we're training the leaders as well as training the employees and providing both resources. So good question.
Hey, Nicole, I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat for everyone in case they want to just like verbally chime in, ask any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute all real quick.
Okay. Give the power back. I know these webinars are tough because we're a little bit disconnected here with kind of this barrier between the chat and actual having cameras and audio on.
But cool, yeah. Stephen, I see that you have your mic on. I didn't know if that was intentional, but.
No, it wasn't. I was just seeing if it actually worked. Sorry.
Okay, you're fine. If anybody has any questions, yeah, feel free to put them in the chat, or otherwise, turn your mic on, raise your hand. You don't have to ask for permission here. Let's see. As for the presentation and mindfulness ideas to bring to the workplace. Yeah. Cool, Andrew. So yeah, we'll probably be sending out the recording. We don't typically send out the actual presentation, but we do send out the recording so that everybody has access to that. And as far as kind of any ideas to bring to the workplace, I think on slide 3 was probably the more, not slide 3, apologies. The listed in number 3, Bobby had actually asked a question there specifically on that. But then there's also quite a few recommendations and suggestions in the portal. So if you go to mind.southbydesign.com, that's totally free to join, and it gives you access to a lot of our materials. And you can actually go back. We have probably now 9 to 10 hours of individual focused webinars that are actually made available there. This is kind of our, and thank you all for being here, because this is our launch of our Leading Mindfully series with HR and executives. So right now, all the content that we have inside the portal up to this point has been employee and individual focused. So, please feel free to go back and watch that and pull out any nuggets that you might find beneficial. But yeah, and I hope that you all can see the chat. I know it's separate from the questions section, but I did leave my link to my calendar there for anyone who would like to just have a complimentary 30-minute corporate mindfulness consultation. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this really is not a sales call. This is literally a thank you from us, for showing up and caring about your teams and your employees, being willing to explore how mindfulness can benefit your teams and your people. And that's one thing that we try to bring into this conversation a lot, right? We almost think of businesses as these disregarded entities, and Nicole touched on this idea that really it is kind of an organism in itself, that it's kind of moving as a whole, independent of the individuals. But at the end of the day, these are still people, and this is this work's our passion. So the more conversations that we get to have in this space, then the greater our understanding of how to serve this space is. So yeah, guys, I really just want to say thank you. Y'all get a follow-up email or recording of this, and please don't hesitate to reach out or to, like I said, to book a consultation with me, and we can just explore kind of Andrew's question in full. We can give him a little bit more mindful ideas when that space is available.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you, everybody. So we'll give you your free 10 minutes back. Go ahead and take a walk or do a 5-minute meditation. We'll send that over as well. But yeah, just thanks for showing up. And I'm sure your employees really appreciate it as well. And just thank you for leading the way that you're already leading, because just being here shows that, you have the capacity to really want to learn and provide solutions and improve. So I really appreciate that and just want to acknowledge that. So yeah, thanks everybody. All right, have a good rest of your afternoon.